right, Michelle, we're ready to go.
Now I'd like to call the May 15th, 2024 Longmont Sustainability Advisory Board meeting to order. Could we please start with a roll call?
Yes, Michelle Roth,
Here.
Kate Collardson,
Here.
Jim Metcalf,
I'm here.
Mary Lynn,
Here.
Robert Davidson,
Present.
Ralph Grosswald,
Here.
Lisa Knobloch,
Here.
Becky Doyle,
Here.
and Heather McIntyre, Zach Blazik.
Here.
Heather McIntyre is here. Councilmember Martin may or may not join us a little bit later today. And then we have some members of the public here. So I will unmute you real quick if you could just give us your name, and that's it for now. So Naomi, or Sherry, sorry.
Oh, so yeah, my name is Sherry Malloy, but it's not allowing me to have my video on.
Correct. That's correct. Naomi.
Yes, Naomi Kurland.
Thank you. And Steve.
Steve Nowd.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Chair, you have a quorum.
Now our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that Longmont sits on the traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous peoples. We honor the history and the living and spiritual connection that the First Peoples have with this land. It's our commitment to face the injustices that happened and when the land was taken, and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. And our inclusion statement. The Longmont Sustainability Advisory Board embraces diverse perspectives from its members and the public to create an inclusive space where everyone feels welcome to share their opinion. The board asks that all attendees listen and speak with respect and avoid attacks on individuals or specific group identities. And now we have the approval of minutes from our last meeting, which was April 17th. Do we have any changes or corrections? Anything that needs to be amended? No, someone
No.
like to motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
And all those in favor? Okay. All those opposed or abstaining?
I tended to abstain.
Okay, great. So they're approved. Do we have any agenda revisions from the staff?
Nope.
Okay. Great. Okay, so our first order of general business is the landscaping code updates from Zach from the city of Longmont.
Great. And Heather, am I going to share this presentation, or are you?
I'm working on it right now. Give me 1 second here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, great. So, hi, everybody. My name is Zach. I'm the environmental sustainability planner with the city of Longmont. So I'm based in DSC. I'm one of the city planners on the city planning team, and my role is really just in the realm of environmental sustainability, whatever falls under that umbrella. I haven't actually ever had the chance to meet with this group before, so I'm happy to introduce myself. And if you want to have a dialogue, have any questions, kind of about what I do or what my role is, happy to chat with you, happy to chat offline. But I just wanted to quickly, Heather, if you want to go to the next slide. quickly introduce myself, kind of talk about some of the things that I do under the environmental planning umbrella. So I have duties based both in current development and long-range efforts. On the current development side, I'm looking at things like raptors that need protecting, habitat, species reports, riparian areas that we're protecting, things on the landscape side, really anything that's in the physical environment that requires a planning review as someone is coming in to do a project. That falls under my scope of work. I also have some long-range efforts, things that we're looking in the future to evaluate, as our codes speak with things like the sustainability guidelines that we have in the comp plan, things like that. I also look at projects that come in for riparian setback variances. I manage those projects as they come in. Those go to City Council for review and Planning Commission for a recommendation. So they never really come across this group, but it's a big sort of effort that I have under my umbrella. And then the last thing that I do is I represent planning on environmental and sustainability related work groups. So with natural resources, I kind of liaise with that group, with Lisa's group. And so I'm kind of the bridge that our department tries to build and, tries to connect with other work groups in the city so that we're all talking to each other and making sure we're on the same page, have the same goals for environmental sustainability planning. Heather, if you want to go to the next slide. So in that effort in 2022, myself from the planning department went with a group of people from natural resources and water to a conference called Growing Water Smart. I don't know if anybody's actually heard of this conference before, but if you haven't, it's a gathering of communities. It happens in states in the American West where we ask questions like, how can we, make ourselves more water smart, more water resilient, or, what things can we do to design our spaces better to enhance water savings? And that's the question that we in Longmont brought to the conference in 2022 was, what can we do to make ourselves more water smart? And Longmont's kind of an interesting case because we have a pretty good water system. We have a lot of water rights. We have a pretty long range, good outlook on where we're at with our water. So it's kind of a more nuanced question for us that we took to this conference and the things that we took away from it. So some of the things that we wanted to look at from the planning side at this conference were, what can we do with our code? What can we do with our land use code? And is that a goal that we want to set sometime in the future to strengthen our code to encourage and enhance water savings in the city? What can we do to reduce the amount of water needed for irrigation? What can we do to decrease water waste by improving water efficiency? And how can we reduce strain on treated water systems by requiring alternative water sources? So things like rain barrels, everything from as little as we can possibly zoom as far in or to the big picture, like the land use code. So that was our goal going to this conference. Like I said, it was in 2022. So a lot of time and a lot of effort into the Water Smart group that we have here in the city has gone into actually starting to answer those questions and make some efforts within the city to do projects and, try to even find just some of the low-hanging fruit. An example of an effort that we had in the last year was in Kensington Park. If you're familiar with the grass reduction program that we put into the park, there's a corner of the park there on Longs Peak where we took out a bunch of non-functional turf grass and we replaced it with a pollinator garden. We involved the community and it's in the second year of that garden now. It looks really beautiful. People are out there working on it. If you happen to go by, so everything like that on the Water Smart side, we took out of this conference and are implementing it into our day-to-day. Heather, if you want to go to the next slide. So one of the things that I took from our goal setting after Water Smart was an assessment of our code called Resilient Landscapes Policy Assessment. And really what this is the research phase of what does our code currently allow? What does it currently require? And what are some of the things that we could think about doing to become more water smart? We got a grant for this policy assessment that funded it, and we got it back, I think, 5 or 6 months ago, and have been kind of stewing on it since then, letting it simmer. But basically what it was is an audit of our municipal code and the materials that we use to make decisions with our code. And it turned out some feedback, like we have multiple policy documents, we have some redundancies. Some of the best practices that we have for effective water efficient work is not always required, or sometimes it's just voluntary or recommended. And then we also found that our code encourages or requires the use of turf rather than alternative plantings in a lot of places. So we got a lot of really good feedback from this policy assessment that we can then use, you know, as little or as much as we want as we think about making code changes in the future. Heather, if you want to go to the next slide. From this report, we also got some great recommendations. So doing big things like clarifying city goals for water efficiency and resilient landscapes. You know, some ideas for how to plan for climate resilience. And then there's also some things that we have actually already started on, like reviewing our landscape retrofit policy and promoting landscape plan amendments. If someone wants to come in and totally modify their landscape plan, I have a system in place in the planning department where people can just do that, rather than you know, going through a whole site plan process and taking months to accomplish the same goal. One of the things that we're looking at doing right now, and I'll get to this on my next slide, is adopting a non-essential turf policy. So that brings me to a law that was passed earlier this year by the state legislature and signed by the governor, SB 24-005. If you're not familiar with this law, what it does is prohibits local governments from allowing the installation, planting, or placement of non-functional turf, artificial turf, or invasive plant species on commercial, institutional, or industrial properties, and in a whole bunch of other places like street right-of-ways, parking lots, things like that. So if everybody on the board is familiar with non-functional turf, I just want to make sure that everybody kind of knows what I'm talking about when I say non-functional turf. I'm seeing some nods, so that's good. Right now, our land use code actually does not discuss non-functional turf, or, you know, it currently basically in a lot of ways promotes it. And that's one of the things that we took away from our policy assessment and from the work that we've been doing in the planning department for the last little while. But this state law basically tells us as a city, we have to go forward with modifying our code to make sure that we're not allowing this or encouraging it on commercial properties in the future. So that's something that I am in the process of preparing to go to city council with. And Heather, if you want to go to the next slide. So the purpose of me kind of coming to you all today is to talk about what this process will look like sort of from here through the rest of the summer. So right now, like I said before, we're in the kind of research and draft phase. We've done our policy assessment. Later this summer, what we're going to do is go to a study session or a zero reading, basically starting with the point of we need to change our code to comply with this state law. And then while we're here, we have the opportunity to ask for further direction on additional water-wise measures, things that we could do based on recommendations from the policy assessment. And so that's kind of step 2. So like I said, right now we're in the sort of research phase. I'm not looking for any action from the board today. Like I said, I'm really more here to just introduce myself and talk about some of the stuff that I have going on. But later this summer, when we get to the public engagement process, you know, say we do get direction from council to move forward on some of these changes, on some of the recommendations that we have, then we can come back and solicit feedback from you all, from Planning Commission, from the general public, and make sure that we have the support from the whole community holistically. So with all that, I'm hoping to bring a big suite of landscape code updates later this fall. I'm hoping to see you guys again later this fall. And that's the extent of my presentation. So if you have any questions, if you want to chat.
Jim, do you have a
I
question?
see Jim raising his hand.
Yeah. Patiently waiting to be called on. Thanks for that. It's seems like a really good direction. I was curious of all the properties that are kind of in the city that we are concerned about, are like, so I live near a park that uses untreated water for all of its irrigation. Are there large facilities that use treated water for large lawns, like you know, parks or large facilities that are actually irrigating with treated water?
It kind of depends on whether it's a public or a private facility. Most of our public facilities, and I can check in with natural resources on this and get back to you as well. But my understanding is that most of our public facilities don't tend to use treated water, especially for things like parks. But for private facilities, you have your HOA that builds a park within their neighborhood or within their multifamily development, right? That those situations, you might see a lot of water waste because you have a patch of, even if it's a small patch of grass that's being watered with treated water, or even untreated water, right? It can still be wasteful because a lot of that water is lost to half of it spraying on the street, half of it spraying on the sidewalk, stuff like that.
Mary?
What do you mean by untreated water? Does it come from the agricultural ditch system?
Occasionally, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I,
So
I've,
not the
I just-
majority though?
I'm sorry, Mary, I didn't hear what you said.
What do you mean when you say it occasionally comes from the agricultural ditch? Where does the rest of it come from?
Well, the rest of it comes from the city water system. It really is a case by case basis, right? It really just depends on who has water rights and where it's coming from, whether it's coming from ditch or whether it's coming from, the city water system. To me, it's all water waste if it's going to something like non-functional turf, right?
Mary, I brought it up because I live near a park that does all of its irrigation with the rough and ready ditch, or one of the ditches that goes by my house. And it's set up in a way so that when they overwater, it drains back into the same system, and it seems like it's a smart thing. But I worry sometimes that is a different beast than if there are facilities that use treated water to water these enormous lawns. It seems like that's an even bigger problem.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, James, because if water is being used to water, for example, a heavily treated golf course, and then it goes back into the ditch and then goes onto the local organic farmers, that's a terrible idea. That's a really horrible idea. Now, I would like to learn more about that. If that's actually happening, I mean, I'm kind of can't believe that would be happening. So who can tell us more about that?
Well, that's not an issue that I could speak a whole lot to today. Really, I'm kind of coming more from the planning side and the code expert side. I see Lisa has her camera on. She may be able to.
Yeah, we can bring in some of our natural resources folks to speak to that piece. Mary, from my understanding, and I would need to circle back with folks, is what Zach is referring to is park property, which I definitely hear your concern in terms of what might be in that water from a runoff standpoint. I don't think they would use untreated water on agricultural property for food production because of the health and safety concerns that would present. So just similar, like we've been having conversations about water features in parks.
You misunderstand my concern, Lisa. Our
Okay.
parks are using glyphosate and a bunch of other stuff on them still that are highly toxic and should not go anywhere near agricultural production. Those ditches.
So you're saying that's going, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a really, really, really horrible idea. And I bet our organic and regenerative farmers would be really, really upset if they found out that was happening.
I'd be happy to touch base with natural resources folks on that piece, because beyond that, I can't speak to that.
It's another reason why we should be trying to go to a zero pesticide policy as much as possible in our public spaces.
Jim?
I just have one more thing for Zach. So just to clarify, the source of the irrigation doesn't matter. It's all about getting rid of non-functional turf is
Yes.
what, okay, so it
Yes,
doesn't actually.
that's kind of the main focus. So, and you know, the way I appreciate that you're all kind of looking at it from a full system perspective, right? I think some of the thought is, okay, where does the water come from? What's the water added to? Where does it go? And so I'm kind of, you know, with some of the stuff that we're considering, you know, narrowing that full system focus into just one step, which is, you know, what is it that we're actually using our water resources on? And that's, I think, what the goal of the state was, to come in and say, hey, don't do any more non-functional turf. And so that's kind of the starting point where we're reacting to, okay, we have this thing that we need to change. What else can we think about? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know you guys are going to be doing the study sessions and looking more into this. I'd be really curious to know how much non-functional turf there is in Longmont that's being watered right now. It'd be interesting to just know the kind of the scope of what these, what percent effect this could have on water usage. It'd be interesting to know. And I know this is an early stage of this. It'd be good when, well, I won't be here, but when the board starts to review and the council does its study session, it'd be interesting to know kind of like oh, it's 50% of the lawns or the watering in Longmont on these large properties are actually non-functional turf. So this would be huge,
Yeah.
as opposed to 5%.
Well, one thing I would encourage you to do, just as you know, ride your bike or drive around the city, is you know, see if you can see it, see if you notice it as you go along. You know, you're on your way to the grocery store and there's a whole patch of street lawn that serves no purpose other than to be watered, right? See how much of that you actually notice. I think you'll see more than you think.
Isn't a lot of it in the HOAs, like mowing strips and you know, main artery divider, you know, separators from the neighborhoods and such like that?
You will notice quite a bit in those areas, yes.
And are they
And-
going to be required to change that out, or will it just be for new developments?
Great question. So the scope of the state law is to commercial properties only, as well as new right-of-way areas and places like that. So any existing areas that serve as non-functional turf right now are not required to be modified under that state law. I don't expect we would ask the council to, you know, require folks to modify those areas. That being said, there has been quite a bit of interest just from HOAs, from individual homeowners specifically, to modify those areas through the process that I kind of quickly described in my presentation. But if anybody in the city, you know, is in an HOA or has their own individual front yard and wants to modify their property in such a way that they remove non-functional turf and add other xeric, native, pollinator-friendly, water-friendly plantings, they can call me. I can take them through that process and we can do that administratively. So that's been a huge effort on my part for the last probably year. And I've spoken with the NGLA about it. I've been trying my best to get the word out and encourage people, because there is quite a bit of momentum to do that. So, but like I said, the state law only requires or only focuses on commercial elements for now. And if council wants us to expand that scope, then we can certainly consider it. But right now, that's as far as the scope could go on the state law alone.
I think a major concern for homeowners would be if it is a considerable expense to maintain non-functional turf, that if there is a change out and there's a savings to the homeowners, that the HOAs actually pass that savings on. I know that there's a lot of folks in Longmont right now who are really upset about what the cost of their HOAs and the fees that have increases that have happened in the last few years.
Yeah, and that's beyond the
Understandably.
scope that I can be
Right.
involved in. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get people to save some water on their bill.
But as you said, we have a larger vision, and I'm just pointing out that if there's resistance from the homeowners because they think it's going to cost them a lot of money and they're not going to be guaranteed the returns, that's just something in terms of, you know, getting it moved through from the larger perspective.
Most of the momentum that I've seen so far with HOAs specifically, rather than individual homeowners, has been grants that, you know, one or two really excited individuals within that homeowners association has applied for and brought their own kind of funding. to do projects. And
Mhm.
that's how they've been able to win support so far. At least that's been my experience in the last year. But there is momentum. I'm happy to share.
Well, I think this sounds like a great initiative.
Great. Well, thanks, Zach. That was great.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'll hopefully see you again soon.
So next we have our public invited to be heard. I have on here that we had one, but it seems like we have more than one person.
We just have one who's sharing
Okay.
tonight. The
Okay.
others are observing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Heather. As a way to a reminder for everyone, the Longmont Municipal Code section 2.96020 describes the powers and duties of the Sustainability Advisory Board as follows. To identify topics related to the environment, sustainability, air, water, pollution, and green buildings, and to advise the City Council on plans, policies, and actions related to those topics. The City Council may request the board to consider environmental topics not specifically listed in the sections. B, to advise the City Council in environmental and sustainability aspects of city plans, policies, and directives, and related goals and strategies. And then to define goals for the board and prepare work plans aligned with board responsibilities to advise council on environmental and sustainability topics. So each person wishing to speak will be unmuted to speak one at a time. When it is your turn to speak, the one person we have, please state your name and address for the record, and then you will have 5 minutes. So we have
Sherry.
Sherry. Sherry, so anytime you want to start, I'll do your 5 minutes here.
Okay. Hi, thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Sherry Malloy. I live here in Longmont. I've been a resident since 1986. I am here speaking and sort of representing a group called Stand With Our St. Vrain Creek. If you wanted to look it up, it's standwithourstcreek.com. We have a blog, but who we are is we're a group of Longmont residents engaged in preserving our St. Vrain Creek as important wildlife habitat in the riparian area surrounding the creek as crucial wildlife movement corridor between the foothills and the plains. So we formed after the flood with some concerns about a lot of properties with flood mitigation were going to be taken, that were in the floodplain would be taken out of the floodplain, and so therefore could be suited for development. And we were just wanting to sort of monitor that, which we've been doing since 2014. But we've currently been involved in a project, an issue to urge our city council to place our open space sales tax on this November's ballot in perpetuity. Just a little background on the open space sales tax. It was passed in 2000. It is 0.2 cents on every $10 purchase. It's for acquisition, maintenance, and enhancement of open space. Voters renewed that in 2007. The current sales tax is not to sunset until 2034. But because people are so upset with with all the explosive growth, we just thought we're going to move forward with this now. Some benefits of open space. I'm probably speaking to the choir here, but it provides some buffers between communities and developments. It is an alternate transportation. There's connectivity, linkages, and trails. Certainly recreation, as I mentioned, really provides critical wildlife and then supports native plants and pollinators. So, I would hope that, this is, an issue that the Sustainability Board might be sort of interested in, which is why I'm here. We're actually, presenting at all the boards, well, not all the boards, but, Parks and Recreation, Transportation Advisory, and Water. So we're, currently doing that. So thus my time here today. So why are we doing this now, even though it doesn't sunset until 2034, as I mentioned, because of the explosive growth? As you probably are aware, this city council is pretty favorable towards sustainability and open space. And so we're, sort of wanting to capitalize on that. And then it's Lafayette passed this recently. They did it in perpetuity with 80%. I think it was 80%. To see either 79 or 80%. So it's not a big ask for voters. Of course, people aren't liking new taxes, but when the first 4 words on the ballot read without raising any taxes, it's a pretty soft sell. So that's why we're, doing it now. And what we're doing is not just going to boards and commissions, but we've been going to festivals and other community events, and getting people to sign our appeal. I want to make the distinction. This is not a ballot initiative, where we have to get X number of signatures. We're just asking and informing people, sort of campaigning for it a little bit. We have a nice brochure. So then people sign this saying, we would like to see council, move this forward for this November. And we have 650 names on it right now. So we're at Cinco and we'll be at Pride Fest and, things like that. So that's kind of what we're about and why we're doing it now. Worst case scenario, if it didn't pass in 2024, then we'd have 2028, because we do want to do a presidential year, because that's when you have the best turnout. So that's the purpose of, kind of the timing. And then we could try again in 2028, or because 2032 would almost be too late. So it really helps natural resources with long-term planning and budgeting to be able to do what they need to do. And, something that's really coming up a lot is sort of a fire ecology kind of approach in terms of some staffing. And there's just, I'm not going to be in their business, but it's something that would certainly benefit the city and Natural Resources Department. So what I'm here to ask is that one of you might be willing to put on your June 12th agenda for consideration by this board as an action item for the Sustainability Board to support, to endorse this effort, or to have a statement of support, or, recommend to City Council. So,
Sherry, thank you so much. That is your 5 minutes.
okay, thanks.
But thank you for joining us.
And that's our only public invited to be heard, so we can go ahead on to the next item.
Can I just ask, I would like the contact information for this group. Could maybe that be sent to Heather and that could be sent to me or something?
Yeah, Lisa and I have her email address, so we can pass that on to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Items from the board. We should have, the composting resolution from Jim.
Yeah, so last, was it it was 2 weeks ago, the composting resolution was presented to city council, and timing of it actually worked out really nicely. The meeting beforehand, the mayor kind of announced that she wanted to do basically everything that was in the resolution, and then the council voted to support it. So at the meeting, it was nice. Mayor Peck read it into the record, read the entire resolution into the record, and then I gave a little spiel about it. And it seems like they were very positive about moving forward and coordinating, specifically of the multiple suggestions we gave, trying to coordinate with other communities to create a front range landfill facility that can handle a variety of compostable materials and kind of get us back to where we would like to be in terms of reducing plastics use in the city and being able to encourage the use of biodegradable and compostable materials. So kind of re-expand things. So yeah, so it seemed in some ways the mayor kind of like, like stole our thunder, but it actually, I think it was great because it just showed that there was already a lot of support for it from the mayor and from the city council. And so it seems like we were just, we were reading the same energy waves in the universe when we came up with it, which I think was good. Actually, and I know it's not on the thing, but, oh, sorry.
Jim, I was just gonna say thank you. Yeah, thanks for leading the charge for this and pulling it together. It's cool to see that come to life.
Yeah.
Oh,
Agreed.
yeah, it was great. I mean, I think the input that everybody gave made it, I think it's a really nice resolution. I think it's really solid. And so I think that was, we went through a number of drafts and had really good ideas from everybody. So a go team effort. I just had one more thing. I think this is where we're supposed to, if we want to talk about the public invited to be heard. Um, uh, I, uh, I would like to discuss this at the June 12th meeting if there's room on the agenda. It, I like Mary, I want to kind of look at the information and read all about it and stuff like that, but it seems like this is something that's kind of right up our alley. And if we as a board could discuss it and come up with our feelings about it sooner rather than later, it seems like that would take an enormous amount of time. I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but I'd love to include it on them.
If you
I was
make a
gonna
motion, I'll second it. That we talk.
I was
about
gonna say the
it.
same thing.
Yeah.
So glad you said it.
I mean, it seems like we're at this place where there's like the new urbanist approach, which is to cram a lot of people in and to make a walkable city, is coming conflict with is coming into conflict with the fact that we're supposed to be restoring preserving riparian areas, which were traditionally used for various kinds of agriculture and for preserving nature, which is why most of us moved to Colorado in the first place. And it just seems like we need to start having these conversations that look directly at these conflicts.
Well, this is something we can all agree on because I feel that the desire not to do the new urbanist approach, which is just sprawl over all of our open spaces, is also attacking these creeks. So even people with different ideas about what the problem is can agree that saving the St. Vrain Creek is a high priority. So I think that's great.
So would we like
Should I,
to,
should I make a motion?
I would second it.
Okay, I'll move that we will discuss the the open space tax. Not what is it though? Okay. I will move that at the June 12th meeting, we will discuss the proposal to make the current open space sales tax permanent.
I second that motion. Oh, are we supposed to discuss? Because we already discussed it. It's up to
I
you,
don't
Michelle.
know.
Can we go to the vote?
yeah, I would assume that we can. So Mary seconds.
I second.
All those in favor? Okay, everyone.
Okay.
Great. That was the only item that we had currently on the board. And we don't have any items from council. Marcia's not here. Okay, do we have anything else? Anything else from the city or?
Do any of the other board members have anything that they want to bring up at this time? Guess not, so we can move on to adjournment.
I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Enjoy the beautiful day.
Okay, great.
Thanks, everyone. See
Thanks,
you next month.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.